Thank you very much for staying. This is the Marketplace. You're welcome back. Now, the Ghana Investments Promotion Center, GIPC, says it would continue to leverage investments into the manufacturing sector to grow the economy. The sector, according to the center's second quarter report, was expected to create close to 2,500 jobs, the highest among all the other sectors. Reviewing the center's activities so far this year, CEO of the GIPC, Mawina Treba, reiterated the center's resolve to attract sustainable investments and build the capacity of local firms through partnerships to create more jobs in line with Ghana's government's development agenda.
I'm always quick to reinforce the key message that it is very much a team effort to promote investment opportunities in Ghana. So our collaborations with various ministries and government agencies, particularly the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, the Ghana Free Zones Board, obviously the Ministry of Trade and Industry and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we're all focused on ensuring that we're attracting the right quality of foreign direct investment into the country. And I think that as we continue to redirect our efforts and get very specific, we'll continue to see more investments coming in those areas that are really important for us from a development standpoint. So a lot of the attention on the manufacturing sector will continue to be sustained. And obviously encouraging more and more Ghanaian companies to look at expanding their operations to serve the sub-region, to serve international consumers. Those are things that we believe will help us to enhance the development agenda, which is really creating more jobs through producing more that we can, first of all, use to serve our domestic market, but also serve the international market as well.
The International Monetary Fund is asking Ghana not to be complacent after making progress in reducing its debts in relation to the value of the economy. The latest IMF fiscal monitor has projected an end-of-year GDP, debt to GDP for Ghana at 66%. This should mean that the debt to GDP ratio may not witness any significant increase till the end of this year, or it could go up and reduce again by the end of the year. Figures released by the Bank of Ghana puts the total public debt as of June this year at 110 billion cedis, representing 66% of Ghana's GDP. Speaking to Joy Business after the launch of the Fiscal Monitor Report in Washington, D.C., Deputy Director of Fiscal Affairs at the IMF, Abdelhak Senghaji, said the current debt levels are high and must be reduced further.
I think certainly the Ghanaian government should be commended for putting in place a reform program that is stabilizing the economy and bringing debt down. However, it's still, I think, business unfinished, right? Debt still remains very high, even at 66% is quite high. And to achieve the 66%, it still needs to put in place a very ambitious program, both in terms of the macro stabilization part, but also in terms of structural reforms. So I would say progress has been made, but still more work to be done.
What are some of the things that they should also be doing? Because some are saying that we could get off the paddle if we don't monitor things closely.
What I would say is that you need consistency in terms of implementation of the reforms, and you need to continue essentially with the reform program. Indeed, if you basically were to reverse some of the measures, the outcome will not be guaranteed. So I would suggest essentially continuing with the program and continue with the successful implementation in the recent years.
Revenue has also been a very challenging situation for government. What should be the way our expenditure cuts is the way forward in trying to control the debts?
I think both, but certainly on the adjustment will be tilted more toward expenditure, although revenue measures are important as well, and we have called for more of the broadening of the tax base and making essentially the tax system a little bit fairer as well.
George Wiafe sent that report from Washington, D.C. Now, moving on, the Minister of Petroleum, Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa, has disclosed that Ghana will soon be exporting some petroleum products into Liberia in the coming months. This follows the supply of gasoline and gas oil to the landlord countries of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger from the Bogatanga Petroleum Depot of the bulk oil distribution, bulk oil storage and transportation bust. President Mahama stated in his State of the Nation address in 2016, the vision of the government was to make Ghana the hub for the distribution of petroleum products in the West African sub-region. Now, joining us on phone to explore the situation further, we have the Principal Research Officer of the Institute of Energy Security, Richmond Roxon, on the line to tell us how he feels about this particular development that has been announced or that the country has taken. Good afternoon and welcome to Marketplace, Richmond.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Yes, I'm fine. Now, bearing the fact that sometimes our demands here become inconsistent, what do you think about this particular development that we have started exporting petroleum products, gasoline, and other products into other countries in West Africa?
Good afternoon to your viewers. I think it's a welcoming news because this was something we've been doing we're doing before. We had challenges and eventually we stopped. So when Tor came back on stream, we started exporting to our neighbors again. So it's good news. We think that Ghana as a country must lead the way when it comes to the sub-region. We want to be the hub when it comes to energy in the sub-region. So it's a welcoming news.
Now, looking at the fact that we are not actually refining our own oil, but we are rather importing this oil to be refined, is it sustainable and is it economically feasible?
Yes, it is. When Tor was established, Ghana hadn't discovered oil, but we were refining crude and we're exporting to our neighbors. Fortunately for us, this year we've had Tor coming back on stream from February, and when Nigeria was in crisis, Ghana had to go to the aid of Nigeria. Now that we have other fields coming on board, like the 10 fields and the rest, we are hopeful that we'll refine our own crude by November, December, thereabout. So when we find our own crude, that means with time we can be exporting more. If you listen to the address by the minister and also by the Chief Executive Officer of BOST, he also did make it known that that is what we're looking for it to go.
Do you think that Tor has the capacity to refine products for domestic use and for export as well?
Tor alone cannot supply. That's how come the regulation was introduced, so that in 2005 we'll have the private sector coming in to subsidize what the market needs because the demand is high. And that's what has been going on. But the government has plans of expanding Tor from about 60,000 about to 200,000 barrels a day. So when that is done, we know that will be really significant. So we are looking forward to that expansion going on. When the expansion is up, we can supply more. And with time, we'll hope that we'll also come up with a new refinery because we've had one refinery in a long time. But we have another refinery also help for us to improve when it comes to supply in the sub-region.
All right. Now, the Minister of Petroleum also mentioned that the country's stock of fuel is quite substantial to cater for the demands for a long time. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, if you be monitoring what we've been doing, every 2 weeks we have a release. The markets can be released. And what we do is that we look at the market stock, the stock that we have in our tanks. And if you look at what we did in the beginning of the month, we said that we have about 225 million when it comes to petrol, and we have about 254 million when it comes to diesel. Even that we're expecting expecting supply. So when you look at that, that alone is enough to take care of about 8 weeks. That's 2 months. So it's enough when we are growing. What the challenge we have is that we have village constraints. When I say village, I'm talking about storage. So when we address the storage concerns that we have, at the end of the day, we can have a lot in our tanks that we're filling. But 8 weeks is significant for us as a developing country.
All right. So quickly before you go, still within the sector, what do you make of the recent call for the importation of clean diesel, especially following the outcome of a report by ASEP indicating that the country is importing or has been importing dirty oil with significant sulfur content? What do you make of it now?
It's interesting because that was a call we've been making for a while now. And on the 16th September, we know that when the story came up, the BDCs came out to say that at the end of the day, if we need a cleaner food or that's a lower ppm, we'll have to be paying more. Consumers will have to be paying more. And the NPA boss corroborated the story. We were of the view that that shouldn't be the case because already, even though were using 3,000 ppm as a standard. Tor was doing 500 ppm, and Tor wasn't charging more. There are times that Tor had done as low as 11 ppm, and Tor didn't charge more. Okay. Also, the calculation that we use as a plus calculation, we've been using 1,000 ppm already to do it. So if you're coming down from the 3,000 downwards, we don't see why we should be paying more. So we are grateful. We are thankful to the MPA and all stakeholders as well that the review has been done. Now it's about 500 ppm. And we're expecting BDCs to import 10 ppm as well. With time, when Tor is restructured and Tor can refine crude lower than a ppm, then the standards can come down further. But we are concerned that the conversation has only been about diesel. We are not looking at the petrol aspect. When you look at the petrol aspect as well, the standards now, our standard is 91, we're on 91. And the world is doing around 95 now. So we're expecting MPA to also look at that side. We're hoping in the very near future, a review when it comes to the petrol side will also be done so that the Ghanaian will have the best of fuels. But another major concern that we have is that when you look at our sub-region now, Ghana is the only country that is doing between 10 and 500 ppm. In fact, even before that, Ghana was the country doing the lowest, that's 3,000 ppm. Our neighbors, some are doing 3,500, others are doing as high as 10,000 ppm. And if you're doing 10,000 ppm, now this implication is that we look at the health implication. And also, you know that there's a lot of trade ongoing in our sector. So people move from Nigeria to Ghana to trade and all. So at the end of the day, cars from Ghana go to Nigeria and purchase the same dirty fuel that we're talking about.
All right.
Ghana should lead the way. We should take charge, go to ECOWAS, other governments, and negotiate and make sure that the other countries also come down from the 10,000 ppm that they have to as low as maybe 10 or even 500, so that we'll have will be equal in the sub-region, because it's the ceiling air that will be blowing from Nigeria to Ghana.
Okay.
And if that's the standard, we'll still be having the same issue.
All right. Well said. Thank you very much for your time. Richmond Roxon is the Principal Research Officer at the Institute of Energy and Security. You're still on the marketplace. Now, moving on, the Chairman of the National Development Planning Commission, NDPC, and former Finance Minister Professor Kwesi Botwe has charged the Bank of Ghana to urgently take steps to address what he deems the misalignment of policies guiding the banking sector. This, according to him, is the surest way to grow not only the financial sector, but the economy at large. He was speaking at the public lecture organized by Standard Chartered Bank as part of its 120th anniversary, where he proffered some solutions. Now, let's first hear from the Chief Executive of Standard Chartered Bank, Kweku Bedwado, who threw some light on the issue and its negative impact on banks.
So after 120 years, are banks relevant to the lives and well-being of the general Ghanaian populace? I'm talking about jobs, food security, health, and well-being. Do we have a financial sector that is responsive to the real needs and aspirations of Ghanaians in the 21st century? Everywhere that I've asked this question, the answer is a resounding no. Banks often take a disproportionate amount of blame for any perceived reluctance or inertia to provide access, especially to small businesses and individuals, or for prohibitive interest rates when they eventually make credit available. Is it that the banks are simply insensitive or blind to the investment deficit into productive and economic value adding activities within the economy and their obvious benefit to society? I say this is not the case. The reality is a bit more nuanced with complexity that is not immediately visible to the casual observer. However, these nuances have been flattened into a one-dimension framework by observers, mainly outside the industry, with highly inadequate efforts to engage industry practitioners. You would agree with me, ladies and gentlemen, that policy comes before investment. If investment levels are suboptimal, then perhaps policy requires further scrutiny.
Now, Chairman of the National Development Planning Commission and former Finance Minister Professor Kwesi Botwe says this could be addressed with the formation of a clear policy framework.
I believe that the solution must start from a clearer statement of public policy, a better indication of what the national plan is, a stable policy framework from which the banks can obtain the necessary guidance and therefore deploy the skills and the talents that they have. This has often been missing because our policy space is characterized by a substantial body of discoordination, misalignment, even within different ministries. So, we are seeking to correct that by spawning a long-term plan at the National Development Planning Commission. I know some people were terrified at the thought of 40 years and so on. Well, except it's not that long. If we had planned 20 years ago that we wouldn't want to have any cities or big towns that are littered with open gutters or that lack a central sewage system. If we had planned that 20 years ago, we wouldn't have them today. So it is important to plan and to issue the guiding principle for such agencies, such critical development agents as banks, so as to stoke their creativity and imagination and enable them, at least within our terrain, to provide.
Former Finance Minister and also the Chairman of the National Planning Development Commission, Professor Kwesi Botwe, sharing his thoughts at the public lecture held yesterday. You're still on the marketplace. We'll take a short break. We're coming back after this. Thanks for staying. Welcome back. Now, online trade is gradually catching on here in Ghana. Sales from online stores are witnessing some significant growth in recent years. But one area that is least explored is the sale of books and stationery online. That's what an entrepreneur, Bright Ado, has braved the odds to venture into. He shared his experiences yesterday on the Joy Business Fund. Here is a repeat.
Purchasing books and stationery has become easier, and I'll show you just how. MyBookandStationery.com is run by entrepreneur Bright Ado. It's an online store for books and stationery, which started operating some 6 months ago. Bright returned from the UK a couple of years ago after pursuing a course in hospitality management. His drive to enter into business would cause him to switch interests. Start MyBookandStationery.com with a couple of friends.
We realized that it's only one particular place. You have to travel all the way from here to somewhere Osu also to get a high quality stationery. So that was an opportunity for us to go into stationery. And we realized that the potential e-commerce business is now coming to Ghana. And the best thing is to do to go in first, to be one of the pioneers.
The online store has got various books and stationery ready to be delivered once an order is placed. It's not been an easy beginning for Bright and his team, starting this in a country where people are used to shopping for books and stationery in the market.
It's all about we know that e-commerce business in our country, Ghana, is a bit low. So we have to do more marketing, enable to get the masses out there to understand that this is what is going on. This is what you have to do before you can. They sometimes call us or send an email, where are you located, so that we can come and buy books or stationery from you. And we realized we normally reply to them, we said, we are not a physical shop, but we are just an online platform where, so you go online, visit www.mybookandstationery.com and place an order, we get delivered to you.
But e-commerce is gradually catching on in the country, and that is a boost enough for Bright.
Actually, a day we can have probably because we are just a little bit new. So let's say 10 in a day, but in a week, probably it's up to like 60 a week. Also, it's up to 60 a week. And it really picked up when we've been to Joy FM Back to School exhibition. That's when more customers got to know us, and they started visiting our site to make an order, to place an order for books and stationery.
The CEO of Total Discount Microfinance Limited, Jacob Ajika, is one of Bright's growing customers. He got to know about mybookandstationery.com at the Joy FM Back to School fair. That's where Bright is headed today to make a delivery.
It's very, very, very convenient. Just sit here and just click, and it's delivered to you. And they also have a very secure payment system. That's one thing that we like. So we are able to use our Visa cards online making payments.
Bright prides himself in being one of the pioneers of the online store for books and stationery in the country, and he's got great plans for the future.
We see by the next 5 years, we want to be the online prime books and stationery in Ghana and also across the sub-region. And we can also make more quality of good stationery and books affordable and accessible to all consumers.
All right, so got myself an interesting book to read, the Guerrilla Marketing Handbook. Well, that'll be it for the Joy Business Van. It's proudly supported by Busy, making good things happen.
And on that impressive entrepreneurial development skill of Bright Ado, we conclude this afternoon's package of the marketplace. Thank you very much for your company. You can always stay interactive by tweeting us at Joy Business GH, and on Facebook we are on Joy Business. For more business news, log on to myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji Riafi. We bring you the last edition of the week of the show tomorrow, same time. Good afternoon.